All right, so AI, it's everywhere, right? But today's deep dive, we're going past the headlines. We're talking about how this tech is really shaking things up, like in politics and ethics, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just robots anymore. We're talking AI influencing elections, the whole ethics debate of algorithms making decisions for us, and even how it might be shaping, the information we see every single day.
You sent over some seriously interesting stuff for this one. Articles, forum discussions, even notes on IBM's Watson X governance. Ready to unpack all this.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with AI and politics, right? One article you shared, it talked about AI analyzing voter data to, well, basically predict us, like who we're voting for before we even vote. Kind of creepy, no?
It's definitely gotten sophisticated, that's for sure. This micro-targeting, it's not just about individual votes anymore. It could be influencing whole elections.
And it's not just like who are you going to vote for? It's how do we craft the perfect message to sway you? Playing to your fears, your biases, makes you wonder, are we even making our own choices at that point? Or
Right, where does free will end and manipulation begin? It's the million-dollar question. This tech is so new, moving so fast, that we're literally writing the ethical and legal rulebook as we go.
which brings us to those notes on, what was it, IBM's Watson X governance.
Right, yeah. Think of it like trying to build safeguards into AI systems. It's guidelines, principles for ethical development, transparency, accountability, minimizing bias in the algorithms, that kind of thing.
So trying to, I don't know, teach an algorithm to be ethical. That
Yeah.
seems tricky, to say the least.
It's a huge challenge. How do you code something as nuanced as ethics? And then, whose ethics are we even talking about? What flies in one culture could be totally different somewhere else.
It's not just build a good AI, it's make sure it's good no matter where it's being used.
Exactly. And that takes constant dialogue, collaboration, developers, policymakers, ethicists. Everyone's got to be at the table on this.
And this is where it feels like, I don't know, it could go either way, right? Either we get this right, and AI really does benefit everyone.org.
Or, yeah, it becomes this tool that divides us even more, reinforces biases, erodes trust in information, in institutions.
You mentioned before we started recording the idea of AI advising governments, shaping policy. That's a whole other level.
It is. And we're already seeing early examples. There's a city in China using AI to manage traffic flow, resources, even public safety.
Okay, on one hand, that sounds efficient. But on the other, are we really okay with algorithms making decisions that impact, whole populations?
Right, that's the question, isn't it? Especially if these systems are a black box. If even the experts don't get how a decision is made, how can we trust it? We need to know not just what it decided, but why.
And who's responsible when things go wrong? Because with anything new, especially something this complex, there are always going to be unintended consequences.
Exactly. Transparency and accountability, those are non-negotiable. We need to audit these systems, understand how they work, and someone has to be responsible if those decisions cause harm.
Imagine an AI that helps judges with sentencing. Sounds good in theory, right? But what if it turns out that AI is biased against certain groups of people? The consequences could be huge.
Absolutely. That's why diverse voices are so important at every stage. Different backgrounds, different fields, different ways of seeing the world. That's how you make these systems fair. Make sure they represent the people they're supposed to be serving.
This is fascinating, but man, it's a lot to take in. Okay, so we've talked about AI swaying elections, maybe even shaping government. But what about just society as a whole? You mentioned job displacement. What's the deal there?
Well, the more advanced AI and automation get, the bigger the risk that certain jobs, the repetitive ones, the task-based ones, those could be automated. Factory jobs, data entry, even some customer service stuff.
So what happens to those workers?
That's the million-dollar question, and there's no easy answer. Some experts think AI will create more jobs than it takes away, but they'll be different. Different skills, different training.
So we're talking about a massive societal shift.
Potentially, yeah. And we need to be ready for it. Invest in education, retraining so people can adapt, and have these tough conversations, like about universal basic income. What happens to people who lose their jobs because of a machine?
Okay, so there are potential solutions, but we're basically trying to write the instruction manual for the future while it's still being built.
Exactly, which is why we need to be cautious. Ask tough questions, challenge assumptions, and make sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
It's like we're standing on the edge of this whole technological revolution, and we're just figuring out how not to, trip and fall on our faces.
It's a balancing act, that's for sure. We got to be excited about what AI can do, but also really clear-eyed about the risks.
Speaking of risks,
Yeah.
you had something in your notes about AI in healthcare. And I feel like that's a place where it could be amazing, but also,
High stakes. Oh, yeah. The potential is huge. Think personalized medicine, finding diseases earlier, even coming up with totally new treatments. But
right.
there are some big ethical, logistical hurdles to clear, too.
Like, what about patient privacy? When you've got these AI things sifting through tons of medical data.
Huge one. We need, like, ironclad guarantees that your health info stays private. And then there's bias. If the AI learns on data that already has those healthcare gaps we see, it might just make those gaps worse.
So people who are already getting unequal treatment, it gets even worse.
Exactly. So these systems, they have to be built from the ground up to promote fairness, not make inequality worse. Diverse teams, rigorous testing, constant vigilance, those are key.
So it's not just the tech, it's how you build it, who's building it.
Right. And part of that whole building it right is the legal stuff. Laws are always behind the tech, right? So we need to figure out accountability, oversight, all now. Like, what happens if the AI gives you the wrong diagnosis? Who's in trouble? We can't wait until it's too late.
You'd think there'd be clear rules, but like you said, everything's moving so fast.
It's like aiming at a moving target, for sure. Even more reason to have these conversations now. We can't wait for the problems to show up before we try to fix them.
Earlier, you said that AI might make new jobs, even if it takes some away. What kind of jobs are we talking about then?
Well, someone's got to design these AI systems, build them, keep them running, more data scientists, engineers, ethicists even, but also people who bridge the gap between AI and us regular folks, translating that complex stuff into something anyone can understand.
So like AI trainers, explainers,
Yeah.
even therapists.
Exactly. We might even see jobs we haven't even thought of yet because of this.
I gotta say, I'm a little terrified, but also kind of excited. Like, we're on the edge of something huge, but it's a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's a lot to process for sure. It's okay to feel a lot of things about it, I think. The important thing is we are talking about it, you know?
One thing that gets me is those unintended consequences. Like, we build these systems to help, but then
They backfire, have side effects we didn't expect. Yeah, that's always the danger with new tech. And with AI, especially as it becomes more a part of our lives, we have to be so careful.
Okay, so how do we avoid that?
One way is to get ethicists, social scientists, get them involved early on, not just when something goes wrong.
So it's not just the code, it's the people writing it, the data it learns from, even just the world we live in while it's being built.
Yeah, exactly. We have to think about how AI will affect everything. Work, how we interact with each other, even what it means to be human. It's a big conversation to have, and we got to have it together.
It really is. It's like we're writing the instruction manual while we're still figuring out how to turn the darn thing on.
And the machine's learning and changing at the same time.
Right.
Wild.
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind. Okay, so we've talked about algorithms and ethics and the future of jobs even.
Yeah.
A lot to think about. A lot.
It is, but the fact that we are thinking about it, having these conversations, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
The more we know about what AI can do, the good and the bad, the better we can make sure it's used the right way.
Totally. So what now? What can we, just regular people, do to make sure AI is, a force for good?
Well, first off, stay informed. Read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, and talk about it with your family, friends, whoever. The more we talk, the less scary it seems,
Take it out of the shadows. Make it something everyone understands, even just a little bit.
Right. And support the groups that are trying to build AI ethically. Push for clear rules, regulations, and hold these tech companies accountable for what they're putting out there.
Because it's not just on the engineers, the coders, right? It's on all of us.
100%. We all have a say in what AI becomes. And it's not like it's decided. It's being decided right now. Every new bit of code, every policy, every conversation we have about it.
It's kind of empowering when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But also a little intimidating.
It is, yeah. But if we work together, if we're curious, if we stick to what we know is right, then I think we've got a shot at making AI something that helps us, that makes things better, solves those big problems we all worry about.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for this deep dive. Hopefully you all learned something, maybe feel a little inspired, and definitely not so alone in trying to figure out this whole AI thing. It's wild out there.
It's been great talking with you, really.
Likewise, as always. And to everyone listening, thank you. Keep those questions coming, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive into the stuff that matters.